watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead, including we'll speak to a political strategist and member of the Republican Party. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Anyagolu. So 2 months out from the U.S. presidential election, a small city in Wisconsin has become the focus of the campaign, at least this week. First, President Trump arrived in Kenosha to deplore what he said had been an assault on law enforcement in the wake of the protests against the police shooting of a black man, Jacob Blake, in the back. Well, on Thursday, it was the turn of his Democratic challenger, Joe Biden. Given the president is trying to make the election into a referendum on law and order, and given that there are also plenty of people saying that the criminal justice system is skewed against racial justice, what are the opportunities and potential pitfalls for both candidates? Well, for his assessment of the president's visit to Kenosha, I'm joined now from Richmond, Virginia, by Erol Morkoc, who, among other things, is a political strategist and media spokesman for the Republicans. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I hope you can hear me there. Okay, you can hear me, I take it. Okay, he doesn't look like, okay. He can't hear me. Can you hear me? I hope the sound, the sort of the audio system is all turned up. Can you hear me there? Okay. Thank you for joining us. How has President Trump reacted to his rival Joe Biden's visit to Kenosha? I understand it didn't take him long to fire back.
So sorry, I cannot hear the question.
Okay, well, let's try and fiddle with the knobs here a bit and see whether we can get Mr. Morkoc back on. He does not appear to have heard me, which of course is rather troubling, but that's the nature of the business, especially when you're dealing with the internet. I mean, it happens not just to us, but to virtually every single broadcast organization today, everyone limited by the coronavirus pandemic, and the fact that we now have to use the internet when under normal circumstances would use a proper fully fledged studio with satellite uplinks and downlinks and all the rest of it. But we're hoping to have a chat with Mr. Erol Morkoc, who we've talked to before, about the Republican side to the American election story. President Trump, of course, going to Kenosha in Wisconsin and talking to law enforcement, standing shoulder to shoulder with them, as opposed to his challenger in the Democratic Party, Joe Biden, who chose to stand, as they put it, with the people of Kenosha. And Mr. Morkoc, thank you very much indeed for rejoining us. I understand you can hear me now. How has President Trump reacted to his rival Joe Biden's visit to Kenosha? I mean, it didn't take Mr. Trump long to fire back, did it?
No, it didn't. And it was front and center about how serious Donald Trump had taken the situation in Kenosha. When you look at the Democratic Party that my prior colleague was talking about, they simply had polled that it wouldn't be favorable to actually go out and condemn looting, rioting, murder, destruction of taxpayer property. Now, when Biden and Trump both visited Kenosha, this is 100,000 people, right? Southwestern Wisconsin. There's a backdrop of is it systemic racism? Is it over policing? But by the end of the week, these two visits really hammered down what each convention was about. Trump's visit to Kenosha was notable because he had actual political and policy goal. He was clearly concerned with the widespread looting, and in the criticism that it was ludicrous for a incumbent president to point about the chaos going on his watch. He was able to show as a hairbringer of what the Democrat Party and what Joe Biden's America. You have to keep in mind that they're trying to spin this narrative that this is happening under Trump's watch. There isn't a single Republican out there burning or looting or anything. Only Republicans out there are trying to protect private property. This is a left-wing coordinated assault, and it's when Joe Biden saw the polling numbers going over. Keep in mind, Kenosha was a state that hadn't gone, or a county that hadn't gone Republican in almost 40 years. and it's a very small margin. So when Donald Trump showed up and he stood next to businesses that had been 109 years in the making, a patriotic, hardworking, diverse community of diversity of ideas, diversity of immigrants from different places and diasporas. The shootings and the police situation is certainly something that was addressed when Joe Biden went and made a phone call to Jacob Blake, who happened to be in commission of a violation of a restraining order for a sexual assault charge that he was facing, had put officers in headlock and all that, and extrapolated to a terrible situation where he lost his life when his father, who's got known anti-Semitic posts on a verifiable anti-Christian, anti-white, using slurs on white people, goes out there and Joe Biden puts him on a pedestal. Meanwhile, a white man killed a black cop in Missouri yesterday, and there wasn't a peep about it. So Donald Trump didn't go there to support PC malcontents and disaffected Marxist agitators. He went there to support the good people of Wisconsin, who are just as important as the people of California or any American, whether or not they vote for Donald Trump. And Donald Trump understands that these swing states are so important. Hillary Clinton didn't go to Michigan, and Joe Biden's still not going to go into Michigan. Their strategy is completely devoid of decency, and also it shows to the duplicitous nature of Joe Biden, who would go in there and after polling, not on his own volition, not because he was a decent person, but after his handlers, the people who are putting this Weekend and Bernie's candidate up for grabs. So we saw, the U.S. Republic wanting to defend and redirect maybe the miscommunication and show that this isn't a systemically racist country. This is a country that has a massive political problem, has massive unrest in the streets, and Donald Trump was the only candidate who showed up there and backed up his convention party lines to try to get that across to the American people. And you're seeing the polls starting to turn in his favor.
Okay, well, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you've made a number of points there, and one of them, of course, which I have to sort of come in, is the suggestion that it's only the sort of left-wing people who are out on the streets protesting. I mean, there have been right-wing protesters as well. There have been clashes between the two sides. But, I mean, at the rally Mr. Trump held on Thursday in Pennsylvania yesterday, he accused Joe Biden of siding with what the president called homegrown terrorism. I mean, is that really the way he and the Republican Party see the Black Lives Matter protests? You don't see any justification at all in what they're saying?
Entendre. It's a trap. It's a communist trap, as though anybody would be against Black lives. I have Black people in my family. Black Lives Matter doesn't represent Black lives. Black Lives Matter is a political Marxist organization in the United States that raised tens and tens of millions of dollars through ActBlue to funnel into Joe Biden's campaign, which all of a sudden, raised $345 million. We have never been against Black lives. What we have been against is the mischaracterization of Donald Trump and how he's been out there. So he's been standing for Black Americans. He's been standing for the growing middle class, the lowest Black unemployment in history, the nonstop funding of historically Black colleges, which builds generational wealth in the Black community, which is, I went to UC Berkeley. The number one part of our undergrad sociology thing is that lack of generational wealth in families and homes and first-time college people. So a lot of people talk the talk, but Donald Trump walked the walk. And we're looking at the fact that if the Democrat Party was to lose 15% of Black female vote, they wouldn't get elected in the next century. And people are starting to leave that one-track mind. There's conservatives, there's independents, there's libertarians, there's anarchists, and you know what? They're from all colors. And the Democrat Party has taken for too long for granted the African-American vote. And that is a much more diverse community, and that is something that Donald Trump is speaking to. This law and order message speaks to the Black community especially. They don't want, you go down into some of those neighborhoods and you ask people, do you want to defund the police? Not here. That's the only thing keeping them away. But he also has to look at the bigger picture where you have illegal drug money that's really funding this. So you need.
Okay. Well, Erol, I have to say, again, it's not really fair to the other side because we try to balance things here. I'm surprised that you say that because, if Mr. Trump's way of showing his support for the Black community is not speaking to Jacob Blake or visiting any member of the family or apparently empathizing with any of them, then that's an interesting way to put it. But Erol Morkoc, thank you very much indeed. You are a political strategist and media spokesman for the Republicans. That's it for this edition of the Arise interview. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, London, and the United States, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.